You don't have to be smart to be successful at business, because most of the people I've met that are wildly successful in business are fucking retarded and they're morally bankrupt. Who is the guy that started WeWork? That dude destroyed people's fucking lives and walked away with $1 billion.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Return on Investment MF channel. It's your host, Zack ROI Williams, and this is the information your haters don't want you to hear about. Becoming the most badass version of yourself in business. What's going on, everybody? It's Zack ROI Williams back with another episode of Return on Investment MF channel. Today, I'm super honored to bring one of my really good friends, Jacob Stahler, on here. I'm kind of curious on how I'm going to introduce him because he doesn't have anything to offer you. He doesn't really want your business, and he doesn't mean that, negatively. He's kind of a mentor to me. I look up to him a lot. He's got a lot of really great knowledge on businesses and the way they run. But basically, he is a serial entrepreneur. He's in the medical space. He's got his hands on a few other different things. His previous life comes from taking businesses public. So he's got a lot of really good information there that we're going to dive into pretty deeply on this episode. And I just really want to introduce him as, someone that if you aren't following him, I definitely recommend it. He's definitely within 30 seconds of following him, you're going to realize whether he's someone you want to continue following, or you want to stop, or if you want
like him or hate him.
Right. So, Jacob, man, tell us just a little bit about who you are, what you do, and we'll jump into these questions.
Oh, what's going on, man? As far as what I do goes, I try and find businesses that, fit my operating model. And if I can do them and maintain them with the amount of effort and time that I want to, I'll really do anything. Businesses are businesses. People always talk about, well, I got to know the industry. You just need to know business. Like, marketing is marketing, sales is sales. It is what it is. It's I don't know. I'm a little bit of a wild card, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a fair way to explain you. And if anyone that's watching knows you in person, they know that to be a fact. So Jacob's really close with, a lot of people that are high up in the Apex community that I'm a part of. It's a great networking tool that we are, that's how we got introduced and started to notice Jacob as that silent killer. He didn't really talk a lot. He just kind of more observed everything. But when he did speak up, it was with definition. It was very, very particular. And you could tell that it was more just to give value instead of extract anything. He even, first thing he said, he's like, bro, I don't have anything to sell you. I don't want your money. I don't need anything from you. There's no information that you can give me that I don't already have. And he didn't mean that in a negative way, but it was just, it's a pure fact. And so he was kind of cutting through the bullshit. So we kind of connected immediately on there. And then the more I got to know Jacob and everything that he's involved with, I was just kind of mind blown on how his mind works, how intentional he is with his actions. And I'm expecting a lot of that to kind of come through on this episode. So I'm really excited to bring that to you guys. So the first thing that I want to kind of get into with his previous business model and what he did taking businesses public, I wanted to get his take on the phrase that many of us have heard time and time again, is a sellable business is a scalable business. And I'll be the first to admit that before I got involved with the high performers like Jacob, I never wanted, or at least never thought of selling my business, right? That's my baby. I built it. I don't ever want to let go of it. And I see Jacob smiling. So I'm sure he's heard that multiple times over the years. But I want to get your take on that, Jacob. A sellable business is a scalable business because from what I've learned, even if you're going to sell it or you're not, and I mean, I would assume that we can both agree that everything has its price, that is still a true model, that in order for us to be prepared to exit any organization, that is a scalable model. So what's your thoughts on that phrase? And like, how do you kind of apply that to the businesses that you've built and exited?
Well, so the first thing I always talk to people about when they come and they ask about things like this is like, do you own a business or do you own a job? And it kind of starts there, right? Because you can own a construction company, but if you're in the field and you're always doing the work, you really have a job, right? So in order to get to a point where it's scalable, you have to be able to figure out how to delegate. Most people in small businesses, they open a business. Maybe it's a passion, maybe it's they wanted to break free, maybe it's because it's what they know, whatever, and they just don't want to be employed by anybody else. So they go out on their own. They start doing the same stuff they were doing for somebody else for themselves, and that's kind of where it stops. And they're in the hamster wheel of kind of running in circles. Well, I need more employees, but I don't want to take a pay cut. These people won't sell as many jobs as I can if I do it myself. If I'm not on site, maybe they'll screw it up, whatever. The point is your revenue can only get to a certain point at that level of action, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And beyond it, there isn't going to be a way for you to, I guess, to grow it to a point where you could exit it and benefit from it. One of the industries I see a lot of this in is like plumbing or HVAC, right? You'll get a guy that will come to you and be like, hey, I've been a plumber for 25 years. I have this book of business. We do $2 million a year in whatever. I'm looking to sell it. Okay. Well, who does the plumbing work? Well, mostly me and my assistant. Well, I can't buy your business. Why? I can't buy your relationship with your customers. This isn't like a brand situation. It's a you thing. So if I give you a 1.5x multiplier for your plumbing business and I give you $3 million, there's no guarantee that people would continue doing business with the brand. Because the first day that I send somebody over there and it's not you, it's going to cause us a problem. And so the first thing that you have to kind of understand is in order to make a scalable business or have a business that you can exit is you need to remove yourself from the day-to-day. And I don't mean that you can't be around it or you still can't participate to a certain extent, but you have to move back from that and be able to add the pyramid where you can scale and add crews and do all this other stuff. Because when you sell it, you're actually selling your infrastructure and your business structure. That's what people are buying. Does that make sense?
No, that makes perfect sense. And, that kind of sparked a second question. And this is kind of a selfish question, but it's something that I'm personally going through with one of my organizations where I am currently replacing myself as the CEO in that organization. So just, for everyone that's listening and a little bit further clarification, because I feel like I've got a good concept of this considering the fact I'm actually doing it, but also it'd be great to hear your opinion on this is what is the difference between a CEO and a business owner? If someone like myself was not exiting the organization, I was still going to own the business and do a portion of basically the networking, shaking babies, kissing hands kind of deal. And the CEO still ran the day-to-day. What does something like that look like? And how do you differentiate a CEO from an owner?
Well, so the best way that I can, I guess, give people an analogy that they'll understand is like a large business, right, is going to have a board of directors. The board of directors in that sense is the business owner, right? Because the board of directors is who represents the interests of the company's ownership. So a hospital, for example, that's for profit has a board of directors. The board of directors has to answer to the investors. But the hospital director or the CEO of the hospital, right, also has to worry about care of patients and things like that. So the CEO usually offers a balance between the people owning the company or the board of directors that's going to be completely revenue, right? And the CEO is the balance where it comes with operations and happy employees and happy clients and pricing and stuff like that. And there's a little bit of a give and take where they're going to structure stuff and work together to make sure that both of those targets get hit. The business owner itself is going to have a 30,000 foot view. You're going to be looking at spreadsheets. You're going to be having email conversations or whatever, but you're not in the field or whatever, elbow deep in the mud to understand the operations and things that are breaking. So, there are times where that can cause a good rift too, because if the business owner gets too far away from it, you're so disconnected from the operations of the business itself that you and the CEO won't ever understand each other. Right. Because you're going, oh, well, these numbers, and I used to do this myself, but yeah, you've been away for 18 months, man. Like stuff has shifted. It's not the same as it was anymore, blah, blah. But yeah, I mean, the owner basically becomes its own board of directors. And that's the person that everybody's going up to and talking to, because that's the person everyone has to answer to. And I guess that's the best analogy I can give to get people to understand the separation.
No, I definitely like that. No, that's a great point. And so I guess this kind of goes partially into the scalable part. Is I wanted to bring up like the importance of SOPs. And I know we briefly spoke about this as being one of the topics, and you had a good point. But I wanted to kind of bring that to the network and let people that are watching and listening understand this a little bit too. But in your opinion, considering the fact that you help businesses exit and took them public, what does that look like as far as what's your thoughts on the importance of SOPs? How do you implement them? When is it just adding another job where you're making an SOP about how to take your lunch or how to take a smoke? You know, as we see these people that are like, oh, just SOP it, SOP it, SOP it. Or someone's like, I don't even know what a fucking SOP is. So like, where does that kind of fall? And where's your thoughts on SOPs that way?
The thing that's funny about SOP, so we have small business owners all the time, and you're like, do you guys have operating procedures? Oh, well, kind of go by the seat of our pants, but not really, because you have an SOP that's in your head that you expect people to operate by, and it's what you'll teach, it's what you coach, it's what you'll say verbally or whatever. People are just afraid of going into Microsoft Word and having to structure what an SOP would look like because they don't know what an SOP looks like. There's templates for it if you want. I don't even think there's a standardized way to put an SOP together. If you want to write blocks of paragraphs and that's your SOP, then that's your SOP. The thing about it is when you're a certain size, you can operate without that. You can forward emails, you can do whatever. Once you go beyond that, the only way to get everybody on the same page is to make sure that they're learning the same information in the same manner, in the same fashion. It needs to be said the same way. Like, what happens if you're doing it verbally or off the cuff, you may use an adjective differently between two people, which may make them understand it differently.
Right.
If it's on paper and you're using as few words as possible and it's one line instructions, it's very hard for people to misinterpret it. There's also benefit in being able to refer back to it. Once you have a ton of employees, do you want people constantly coming back to you and being like, hey, how do I do this again? And then you're like, bro, you know what I mean? So if you have a backlog of SOPs, whether it's on a Google Drive, whether you're using the storage or knowledge place on an app like Workplace, there just needs to be a place where people can actually go and find that information themselves. In fact, on the medical business I have, we're going through and kind of standardizing a lot of that stuff. How to work with the Square thing, how to upload things to the EMR, how to deal with this, that, and the other things. And the thing is, most of it's common sense, but, that doesn't mean that everybody's going to process it the same way. Right. So in order for people to be able to pick up someone else's Square or look at someone else's data or look at someone else's input, we just have to standardize it. And so the only way to do that is to create a walkthrough that gives everybody the same exact learning experience. The longer that you wait to implement a standard operating procedure, the harder it's going to be to implement once you have tenured staff, because they're going to only know the old way to do it. Yeah. In this new way, it might not tweak it a lot, but it's going to tweak it enough that it'll make it different. And they're going to be like, oh, well, I've always done it this way. And then you got to have that conversation. And you don't want, one of the people that's been in your company for 8 years and you having a knockdown drag out fight about spacing in text. You know what I mean? And that's one of the things that you'll wind up getting. And you want to avoid that if you can. Then to get to the scalable and exitable piece, if someone were to come in and they were doing evaluation on your company and they wanted to get a good understanding of what they were buying, the numbers are part of it, right? How much revenue is this place doing? Where do I think I can bring it if I were to purchase it? How do I make it bigger? How do I generate more revenue? The second thing is, what is the infrastructure that I'm purchasing? How much effort is it going to take for me to put something in place that I can trust? How much work has been put into making sure that everybody is on the same page, doing the same things the same way? Is the verbiage the same? How are people trained? All of that stuff. There's a reason why when people that have a normal service company see someone worked at Quick Trip for 5 years on their resume, that they'll jump or gravitate towards that person. Quick Trip has a fucking school that you go to. So whenever you walk into Quick Trips, it's the same experience. Everyone greets you the same way. The staff is operating in the same manner. The stores look the same. The products are all in the same spot. So if Quick Trip were to ever be like, all right, we're going to sell our whole brand, do you know how many people would be opening to buying that? It's just a set it and forget it business.
Yeah.
And that comes down to SOPs, right? Chick-fil-A. Everybody knows what an experience in a Chick-fil-A is. That's SOPs.
Yep.
And so if you don't have that type of stuff and you're looking to sell your business, people are going to look at it and be like, well, it's generating revenue, but this is a fucking mess. Like if I buy this, I'm going to have to get elbows deep in retraining people. Is that going to piss people off? Are people going to want to quit? What about our customers? Are they going to be able to absorb the changes? And those are the questions you get into, especially when you're talking about $500 million exit. Those things matter. Like it's not a $500,000 purchase. You know what I'm saying? Right. So if your sights are on these big 9-figure, 10-figure exits, you have to execute perfectly, and you have to show people that you execute perfectly, because they're not going to go and talk to every person that works for you and be like, show me how you do your job. Like they don't have time for that. So they look at all of your infrastructure and all the stuff that you have on the backside to make sure that you have your shit together. Because ultimately it's a big thing for them.
It's funny you bring that up at the end of there too. So, 2 weeks ago when we were in Cabo, it was a conversation between myself and Bobby Castro. And I almost brought this question up, but then it was time for dinner. So in a merger or acquisition, or even an exit, is there a difference in procedures, from a $1 million merger or acquisition or exit versus $1 billion? Like, or is it just the same thing on steroids? Like, or, no,
it's 100x. So think about it like this. If you were to look at an $8 billion, $9 billion brand, and you look at their company infrastructure, how many VPs do they have?
Right. Okay.
Like 15 of them. Yeah. Under those VPs, you have senior level directors, then they all have direct reports that go up to them. And that's where a lot of stuff gets choppy. Like my wife worked for Estee Lauder, and she works on the data side. They've got brands all over the globe. Some of her meetings were 7:00 in the morning because there's people in Croatia on the call, right? Their data from brand to brand was different, and it was structured differently. And so they're bringing this stuff in and they're trying to standardize it. They have all these deadlines in place, but they can't do it. Why? Because you're talking like the marketing people, they don't want to smash the reset button on all their data because it's going to cause them problems. Right. Because if you can't find shit on their website, how do they sell it? Right. But the only way to undo all of this stuff and make it all match is to hit the reset button and put it through a new system. The longer that you wait to hit the reset button, the worse it's going to get. Right. Because you're still going to grow your data on all of these different, and they don't speak to each other.
It's like rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah. Like, so at some point you just have to decide, fuck it. We have to do this. And like, yeah, there probably is going to be some lost revenue, but at some point that lost revenue is going to come. Mm-hmm. So running from it isn't going to help you. The question is, do you have the team to do it? If you have the team in place to fix the data, then that's just what needs to happen. And you need to figure out the structure that's going to cause the least wave or least sized wave through the whole infrastructure of the business. And a lot of times the people that are focused on revenue, the board people, are going to be pissed that this is even a topic, right? Right. It's like, oh, we could foresee that $100 million in sales might disappear. Well, no one wants to hear that. Like, that wouldn't make me happy. Right. But the problem's not going to go away. You know what I mean? And so when you have these companies that are that big and they have all these different brands, or they're a company that does a ton of acquisitions, there's a lot of places that do like equipment manufacturing for construction, pool shit, whatever. They'll go around and buy all these small brands up. Well, the thing about it is you got to send a team out to go and even go through their warehouse. Right. They got to put all of their stuff into it. Now you own their website. Well, if they don't do shit the way that you did it, how do you guys assimilate and make all of this stuff work together? They have different software. They have whatever. So now you have this whole branch of acquisition people that you have to worry about. And so when you have billion-dollar corporations, I mean, you're talking about, there are some that are so mismanaged. I would not be surprised if they had close to $500 million in payroll spend. That's completely unnecessary. Jesus. Well, if you think about extrapolating out. So if you have one branch one brand, let's just say it's sales, and you guys do sales globally, and you guys have 1,500 salespeople. You have all of all the area managers, all of the regional managers, all of the country managers, all of the people that they answer to, that, and like you get all the way up this chain, and there's 4,000 people involved in just this one deal. So then you do that to all of them, and there's inefficiencies across all of it. The amount of money that gets burned is astronomical. And I don't even like thinking about that, because like
yeah,
it makes me
that hurts
uncomfortable.
my soul.
Yeah, but they've dug themselves a hole that's deep if they hit the reset button. But people they only see outgoing and incoming, right? They don't think about impact. So like, to speak to that, what is your cost if you fire somebody after, I don't know, 2 years of working with you, and you hire a brand new person? Like what is the lost revenue between keeping this person that was here for 2 years and giving them a raise versus not giving them a raise, letting them leave, and hiring a brand new person?
Oh yeah,
It's
all that lost time.
But the thing about it is, it's not even quantifiable.
Right.
You cannot put a number on it because you don't know the proficiencies of the new person.
Yep.
Are they going to be slower? Are they going to be faster? Maybe they don't stay around for 2 years. Maybe they quit after 6 months. Like, you don't know. And so people don't want to give the raise, right? Because they're like, well, we can't spend this money. Well, if you fire them and bring this new person in, you're spending money that you can't even see.
Yeah, you can't afford to lose them at that point.
No. But there's no way to even know what that number is.
Yeah.
And that's where people get stuck in operating businesses, and they make shitty decisions because they're like, oh, well, I can count this. I know where this money is, but there's not a number that you can put on lost revenue by letting the tenured person who knows all of the intricacies of all of the small problems that could ever come up, that they'll never have to bother you about.
Right.
Like, how much is that even worth to you? You know what I mean? And that stuff is wild. People always ask, like, I'll ask you, you're a marketing guy. Why does Coca-Cola still advertise?
Stay relevant.
They're just trying to stay in your face. Do you think they have do you think they have a ROI number on their marketing?
No.
They just have a spend.
Yep.
Because they're trying to stay in your face.
Yep.
And they know the value of that spend, because they know if they take their foot off the gas and someone else puts their foot on the gas, they're going to lose market share. They aren't going to claw back.
Exactly.
Because the other person is going to have to slow down their market spend.
Yep.
But these are all the things that go into the big boy companies that the smaller companies don't have to think about. Because once you're a household brand, you can't quit marketing.
Yep.
It's just the marketing spend has a different goal.
It's funny you say that too, because, previously in corporate America, Mountain Dew was one of my organizations that I did marketing for. And it was the same thing as, it's kind of strange. As I scaled the corporate ladder, it went from, using your word, more quantifiable, metrics, more KPIs, more things that I could directly tie a revenue to from an expense. And then it was, once we got to certain levels, when we were working with Red Bull and Mountain Dew, it was like, dude, we had marketing budgets for shit that, like, there was absolutely no way you could track any results from. But
like Red Bull was doing those pop-up like DJ events as after hours in cities that they have large accounts, and it was private. You couldn't get into them unless they told you could come. They didn't charge any money for you to show up. Yep. They gave you free fucking Red Bull while you were there. It meant absolutely nothing to them.
That's exactly
absolutely nothing.
That's exactly part of the teams that I was on. The trucks that popped out, full speakers, DJ boost came out of it. You had all these expenses, all these people involved, that it was literally just to have a good time and just to show that, like, if you drank Red Bull, you might have an opportunity to live this lifestyle. And it was just so crazy to me. And then it's like, as soon as we exited corporate America and went private again, it was like straight back to like, yo, every fucking dollar that goes out, we have to have $2 that come back in, boom, 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 all these quantifiable metrics, KPIs, you name it. So it's really funny that you bring that up.
It's just a completely different ballgame. There's purpose, but the purpose is different.
Yes.
And what's funny is too, you could even take Mountain Dew is a Pepsi brand, right?
Right.
So during the battle of the colas, right?
Yep.
Back when was it Pepsi got some dude tried to get the Harrier jet with Pepsi points, Are you old enough to
Yes.
remember that?
Yeah.
So, so like they started doing the Pepsi Point shit where you could get like bomber jackets or whatever the fuck it was. And they put a Harrier jet on one of their commercials for like 7 million points.
Right.
And some kid and people like bought the points for it. And they tried to literally claim the Harrier jet, and Pepsi freaked out. But so anyway, back to my point. Mountain Dew actually was crushing the market for a while, going after all the snowboarders, the MTV people. They had a bunch of interesting like citrus flavors that they were going after and all of that stuff. And what's funny is once they hit a certain amount of market share, they quit fighting for it. They beat out Mellow Yellow. There's nobody else in that space flavor wise.
Right.
So they did what they had to do, and then they took their foot off the gas and they went a whole other direction because Mountain Dew is going to keep its market share. It's not going anywhere.
No, 100%. I hate that we got on this subject because there was one of the lines of one of the Pepsi and Cola fight that I cannot remember off the top of my head, but I'd like to go back and revisit it at some point because it was really interesting marketing strategy where it was just like most of these elections. They didn't necessarily need to make you drink their beverage. They just needed to make you not drink their
The other one.
best
Yeah.
competitor. So it was quite an interesting battle there. But you know, I want
Pepsi. I think Pepsi during that era had it on lock. They couldn't be touched. They had the biggest people ever. Michael Jackson. I mean, Shaq. I mean, every person you could have that was a celebrity was on the Pepsi team. Cindy Crawford, I think, was one of them. I mean, they were absolutely just gangbusters going after market share.
It's definitely been an interesting battle to watch, the Coca-Cola versus Pepsi battle, because like if you start to kind of think back on some of these strange shifts where these brands would shift the market, like going back to like Coca-Cola simply putting random people's names on Coca-Cola bottles and cans. It was so crazy to me that something so simple could push someone over the edge of purchasing a Coca-Cola versus a Pepsi. And then all of a sudden it isn't even about people drinking a can with their name on it now. It's just now you start to subconsciously see that everyone has these red cans now instead of these blue cans. And it's just absolutely wild how these battles over the subconscious really kind of kick in when it comes
to one of the things you don't know about me. So one of the things I do for fun is I actually go to what are they called? Focus groups, marketing focus groups. I do it all the time. If I can do it on Zoom, I'll do it. If I have to go into an office, I'll go. And the only reason why is it helps me kind of see what other people are doing. So have you ever seen the Icelandic water bottles?
I have not. Oh, with the jacket edge at top?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was in a focus group for that bottle.
Okay.
And the stuff that they came out to us, everybody in the group, they were like, so, you know, when you look at a bottle, do you like these shapes? Do you prefer it to be glass? Do you like whatever? What, blah, blah, blah. My entire focus group wanted nothing to do with the bottle shape they eventually went with. Absolutely nobody. There was 15 of us in the room. It was probably 7 or 8 on the available options. And it was weird to me because it's like, so they didn't like put us, like they didn't know anything about any of us. They didn't put us all in a room because we had things in common. We were just randomly selected. That was our time of day. We went and showed up. I'm very curious to know how many other focus groups they did that were so geared completely the opposite that they went forward with the bottle choice that they ended up going with. Because we all thought that one was an absolutely ridiculous bottle. It's like when you're saying, you know, like, oh, you know, how are these marketing choices done or who's making the decisions to put a name on a bottle? It's hard for me to understand even the way that it works because I've been in a ton of focus groups and I've maybe seen 1 or 2 products that listened to anything that we had to say in the groups I was in. So it's like, are they trying to piss people off? Like,
right.
What's the goal?
Man, I don't know if that ends up becoming a personality thing because I've seen that, you know, on the corporate side of things in Fortune 500 and Fortune 100, you know, organizations in and of themselves where it's like we do all this market data. all this market research and we find areas for market separation and all this, we give them all the analytics, everything they need to know. To people like us, the answer's in black and white, right? And then all of a sudden a rollout comes out and you're like, what the fuck were y'all even listening? And it's like, I start to trace some of that stuff back to, it's like these people, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. It's like you give these people all this information, but for whatever odd fucking reason, themselves, their wife, their brother-in-law that works for the company, or someone else thinks they fucking know better than literally the market.
And they spent $50 million in 25 major cities to do these focus groups. It's just, and like, I've never met anybody that was in charge of that part of marketing for any major brand. So I don't have anybody's brain that I can pick, but it is something I've always been very curious about.
Right.
Because, they're bringing me in because I'm their target market.
Yes.
And then I'm saying, this is fucking stupid. And they're like, cool, we're going to do it anyway. And I'm like, what? Then why have me here? Like, what's the point of?
I'm assuming you've never bought one of those ice water
bottles.
Never. Yes.
No, they look ridiculous. Yeah. I'm not carrying around a thing that looks like a fucking iceberg to drink water out of. It's not going to happen. Like I'll do a Voss bottle or I'll do a Fiji bottle, smart water. I don't even care if it's a knockoff 7-Eleven smart water. Like I'm okay with that. They were saying that they were going after the high-end market. They wanted to compete with Voss. They wanted to compete with Fiji. And so all the questions that we answered to even get allowed to be in this room was we had to identify liking those types of brands.
Right.
And so we did. And then they bring us in. They're like, what do you think? We're like, nah, bro. And they're like, cool, we're going to do it anyway.
Jesus, bro. That's insane, man. I really don't comprehend it.
But I didn't mean to take it off on a weird tangent, but like that's something that I do to try and stay in touch with like how different markets and things like that are operating. Cause I'm curious to know what they're curious about.
Right.
You see shit like the Pepsi stuff and how they went crazy with that. They went and talked to teenagers and they were trying to see what would spark them. And that was why they went with all the stuff that they went with.
Right.
And so that was why I started doing focus groups. Cause I just think that shit's interesting.
No, I mean, I definitely think that's, coming from where I come from, I tell brands all the time when we get involved with them that, the first, depending on how intricate the product or service is, the first 30, 45, 60 days is strictly market research. Like I cannot literally, there's no brand, no company, even if I've done it for 100 other organizations prior, I cannot come into your organization and just turn on a light switch and start pumping out legitimate results. Now, what we'll do is we'll come in and find out what that low-hanging fruit looks like and try and get you some returns immediately. But outside of like anything that's going to be market disruptive is not going to happen immediately. You've got to know where there's room to kind of get that foothold in.
Well, it's like with me with doing HRT stuff, right?
Yep.
How many ads do you see on your thing with like a little vial of testosterone? All of them?
Dude, it's been insane here lately, and I thought that you couldn't use that.
Well, so the thing that's crazy, so you have this little vial, and it's like get started today for $99. Yeah. Like, oh, it's gonna make you feel better. The ads are all the same. If I were to scroll my feed, I would see 3 or 4 of them. I would have no idea which business they tie back to. Nothing. My HRT ads are all images of benefits, right?
Yes.
And it'll have like whatever, and it's free consultation. Doesn't cost you anything to get started. Fill out this questionnaire. You'll talk to a physician and we'll even tell you if it's worth having your labs done. We don't need a dime from you.
Right.
No one does it like that. You know what I mean?
No, they're all trying to push the product and they're not focused on like what the actual dream is, which is, I want to sleep better. I want to look better. I want to have more energy. I want to have a better sex drive. It's like, those are what matters. You know what I mean? Like it's literally the end result. And depending on what the cost is, I don't care if it's, $100, $200, $300 a month. If you're telling me you can do X, Y, Z, I'm buying X, Y, Z. I'm not buying a little bottle of juice.
Nope. No. And it's just weird to see. Cause I just look at stuff and maybe I'm just wired different, I don't know. But I go through and I look at it and you have all these like mobile IV clinics. All their ads are the same. It's a picture of an IV bag and a dude in a chair and a nurse with their thumbs up and whatever. And they've got some promo price.
Yep.
Everybody's doing the same thing. If you're going to have different results than those companies, you have to be different.
100%.
There was a guy, shit, I can't remember what his name is. He's on my friends list. He'll probably end up seeing this. He's in the copier industry. They do like printers and shit like that for offices, right?
Okay.
So he gets into my inbox. He's like, we have this service product that is like so good that it's a game changer for everybody. And he's like, I just don't know how to do whatever. And he starts talking about, I'm like, well, tell me about your process. We do this. I'm like, well, as a copy person, I know I'm just waiting to argue with you about a service contract. It ain't about the printer. I just know we're going to fight about the service contract because that's ultimately what you want me to sell me, right?
Right.
But if you're going to go national with this product, why don't you set up a website where they don't have to talk to anybody? They can pick a printer, they can buy it, you'll ship it to them. They won't talk to anybody, the whole process. And then a week after they get it, call them and make sure it's set up okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And once you do that, you can be like, hey, most people are not interested in talking about this kind of stuff, but we do have a good service product. If you're ever interested in hearing about what we have, you know how to get a hold of us. You're leasing your printer from us. And he was like, yeah. He's like, but what did he say? Something along the lines of, but we want to sell the service thing. I'm like, I understand that, but the approach is different.
Right.
If you got a bunch of people that know that they can just buy a printer from you without talking to a single human, you're going to have a bunch of leads that are going to come in. You can add a checkbox to the checkout thing saying, click here if you want to talk to someone about a service contract. Now you have a warm lead.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And we're like going through the process. He's like, God, but that's just so different for how everybody do it. That's the fucking point.
Exactly.
That's the fucking point.
Exactly.
Like, if you want to change a user experience, like there's a reason why Steve is sick and tired of his fucking copier person and why he wants a new one. Shit's always broke. Maybe they don't do anything. Maybe he's just sick and tired of buying his own cartridges and shit like that from Best Buy. But like, he doesn't want to talk to a salesperson. He doesn't want you to come to the office and fucking show him a catalog. He doesn't want to do that. I was like, you put it on the site. You're like, are you a big company doing 1,000 sheets a day? Are you a mid-sized company doing 500 a day? Are you under 200 a day? And then products that go with it. Put it in the cart. Give me $20. We'll bill you every month. It'll be there in 7 days.
Yep.
And he was like, God, I gotta kick this around. I'm like, but the thing is, you're removing all of the hurdles.
Yep.
All of the spots where people know that they're going to have to brace because they don't want to fucking fight you about it. Just get rid of it.
Yep.
And you can, what do you call it? The sales cycle is longer, but you're going to close more deals.
Yes.
Because if they already have your fucking printers, they're tied to you for the whole length of the contract. Yep. And if they're eventually going to want to have it serviced. And if they have a third party come and do it, it could cause issues with the lease agreement.
Yep.
Like, they're not reading that fine print. They don't care about that. The idea is to put them in your system.
Yep.
But yeah, so that's how my brain works.
No, dude, I love it, man. And I appreciate it. And that's why our conversations always end up
going other directions.
Yeah, like this, but it's always a really good time. So, man, the last big question I have for you is like, what are the main focal points when you are taking a company public? So like you come in, and again, for people who don't know you used to get hired to come in and prep these businesses to go public, right? And so like when you came in, I'm sure there was a wide variety of some that had their shit buttoned up, some that were just complete fucking mess, and then whatever was in between. But like, when the end goal, right? You're being hired for that dream, right? The dream is to exit, or the dream is to go public, or whatever the case is. And then you come in and point A, like, how do you get them to point B? What are you looking for to take a company public?
So most of the time when I would come into a company, it would be a company that's doing, 2 million or less in gross revenue annually. And their objective is to scale, get to a point where they were in a profitable position, where their multipliers were, advisable. Most people want to sell for, 50 to 100 million is usually the sweet spot, right? You sell for 100 million, there's 3 partners, everybody walks away with $20 million. With $20 million, you can make $2 million a year off of it in perpetuity and really not have to worry about much.
Right.
But so usually when you come in, there's going to be, the owners of the company will usually have 1 or 2 of the 3 pieces that you need. You need a sales guy, you need an ideas guy, you need a systems guy. Most companies that you walk into, they might have a sales guy and an ideas guy, but it's a fucking mess because they don't have a guy that does systems.
Gotcha.
They might have a systems guy and they might have an ideas guy, but they can't fucking sell anything because they don't know anybody that knows how to do it. Right. So like when you go into it, you have to figure out which piece they're missing. And so the first couple of weeks is going to be kind of understanding their workflow, figuring out how their meetings are done, who's making these decisions, how does this stuff get done? And then you're like, okay, I've kind of decided who you got. Because your ideas guy is usually going to be part of your marketing team, right? He has these ideas about the product. He knows who needs it, whatever. The sales guy is going to be like, okay, I know how to provide value to this deal, whatever. The system person that's missing is a person who puts all of that together to create an efficient flow to make sure that they're getting the right people in front of them. Is it a one-stage sales deal? Is it an opener closer situation? Like, are there payments? Is it how are you going to put all this stuff together? So then once you've determined kind of what pieces they have and what pieces they don't have, it will tell you where you need to go first. So if you've got a sales guy and you got an ideas guy, all right, let's talk to you about your CRM. Let's talk to you about how you aggregate your leads. Let's talk to you about how you're doing, I don't know, lead scoring. What's your drip process look like? Because we know that they don't have a systems guy, right? So they're going to have top level basic shit all over the place. Right. So one of the companies I went into was a bankruptcy law firm that does national stuff. So I show up on the first day and, you know, we get to talking, blah, blah. We get in, they had a systems guy, but a systems guy in a sense that he understands like people, but not technology systems. Right. And then you have a guy that's kind of like the CEO. That's a very positive guy, very likable, whatever else. And then they had their guy behind the scenes that kind of understood the law piece. So we get in there and it's I don't know, probably my third day. And I'm like, I want to listen to phone calls. They had an opener closer set up. They were using 5.9 for their dialer. And I plug in and I start listening to people. So phone rings, voicemail picks up. Hey, this is Brian. I'm calling about your debt. Give me a call back at this number. And I like set my fucking headset down. I'm like, y'all are calling people that say they want to file a bankruptcy and you're leaving a fucking collections voicemail? How many people call you back?
Right.
And they're like, what do you mean a collections voicemail? I'm like, dude, these people filled out a form saying they have a ton of bad debt that they want to get rid of. And you're leaving a voicemail that's vague as fuck. And you want them to call an 800 number back?
Yeah.
You know how many voicemails they get like this?
No. Oh, yeah.
All day.
Yeah.
All of them.
All of them.
And they're like, well, what should we do instead? Anything else. Fucking anything else. But this. Fucking anything at all. And it's so... I ended up telling him, I'm like, hey, I'm calling from this company. You had inquired about getting rid of your debt through a bankruptcy. We just want to chat with you. Probably take 5 minutes. We just want to check off some boxes, see if it even makes sense. People started calling back in all of a sudden. Yep. So then we start looking at their call patterns. Like, how does this system determine who gets called? There wasn't a structure. So they're getting, you know, I don't know, let's call it 100 leads a day. And they're all just in there. New ones don't get called before old ones on any type of a sliding scale. It called a lead every 2.5 hours. So sometimes you call the same person 4 times in a day, but the lead's 25 days old. What's the point of that?
Right.
You know what I mean? So we ended up deciding we had to go into entirely new phone systems, right? Well, with entirely new phone systems, there's a whole new process to the phone calls. So now we're talking about, okay, we're fixing this. Let's figure out how we go through the call flow. Most people like to use scripts. I don't like them. Right. Scripts are limiting. And if I write a script, no one's going to deliver it the way that I talk.
Correct.
So it's not theirs anymore.
Yep. Does
it take longer to teach somebody a call flow? Yes, but it's something that they can own. Yep. So we ended up developing a thing on a legal sheet of paper. You know, this section of the call, you can't move to this section until you have this information. Then, you know, whatever. And we're training people how to do an open. Well, it starts feeling very comfortable and very natural after a little while. So we've got the front end fixed now. We've got all this stuff going on. We have managers in place, blah, blah, blah. Now we move over to the closers. We had people, and this is how you know that you're a new startup company, because when you hire salespeople, you get like the alcoholics, the kinds that can't hold a job, like, because they're taking a chance on a company that no one's ever fucking heard of, right? Because they can't get hired anywhere else, right? So we had a guy that basically would literally pressure elderly people into like making a deposit.
Oh,
Because like they would take as little as like $1 down just to get started. And so, you know, they would be talking to this 60-year-old lady that has like the cute grandma voice.
yeah.
And she's, you know, she's got $2,500 in credit card debt and they won't leave her alone. And he's like, you know, that stuff's never going to go away. You know, they're going to keep harassing you. You just need to do this. It's like, take your foot off the gas, man.
Dang.
You know what I mean? Like read the room.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we had to go through training with understanding how to do soft closes, how to recognize who they're talking to, and all of that. And so like slowly you go through and you fix the pieces that are broken. And then you prep people, you know, to move on. Every company had a different problem because the different people that were involved with it to begin with.
Right.
Some people had a very robust marketing system and a very robust sales deal, but they were still working orders out of fucking Excel.
Yeah.
But it's because they didn't have anybody on the tech side to help them out to build all of that stuff out.
Right.
And so like that's literally the process when you go in, is because when someone else comes in to buy you, they're buying that infrastructure.
Yeah. No,
They want to be able to come in and be like, yeah, like all we would need to do is fucking add more offices. Like this place has its shit together and it generates revenue.
Right.
And in that case, they'll usually cut a deal to keep you around for 5 years, you know, once you're gone, and pay you a salary to exist on top of what you're getting paid to leave.
Man, and I've seen people who know how to play that game that have actually exited, collected that payout, and then actually gotten paid more to stick around salary wise than they were paying themselves when they ran it.
Yep. And it's just because they trust that you know what's going on.
Yeah.
And they don't want you to
paying
leave.
not to have that headache.
Yep. And that's, you know, you think about how you get to 9 and 10 digit exits, and they're buying how your business is run. You know, with a medical business, if you have a medical business, that's all cash, right?
Right.
And you're doing 60 million a year in revenue, and 30 million of it is membership payments. And you don't take any insurance at all. And they come in and they look and they're like, damn, like this thing's on autopilot. Imagine if we added insurance payments to this. They'd quadruple their revenue.
Yes.
So all they're going to do is copy and paste your model because everything works fine.
Yeah.
You know, if they come in and they're like, well, this shit's broken. I don't understand this handoff. There's this bottleneck right here where this shit has to go through this one person. Like, they don't want that headache because they aren't trying to come in and fix your broken shit. And if they choose to, they're going to lowball the fuck out of you offer wise, because they're going to have to pay a bunch of salary to come in and use dynamite on a bunch of spots that are fucking broken.
Yep.
And they don't want to do that anyway. Like the clothing company I took public, man, that was a disaster. I can't say this is fact because I don't know if it's true or not.
Right.
But the only reason I think the guy wanted to go public is because he had so much bad debt. The only way to clear it was to basically run a pump and dump scheme to generate enough cash to be able to pay off all the people that have been chasing it.
Right.
So that was the vibe I got, like, once I was knee deep in it.
Right.
And we're talking like this guy was in such a bad way that check cashing spots all over this place in California we were in, they wouldn't take a check that had his signature on it. Not his business, his signature.
Uh-huh.
It didn't matter where the check was from. They wouldn't take it because he'd written so many bad checks and he'd floated so much cash, right? But like, you don't learn about any of that stuff when you show up in town. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, they aren't going to be like, yeah, hey, bro, I've written at least $1 million in bad checks in the last 18 months. I'm not coming. Like, you know? Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, at the craziest part about going public, and I think I told you this when we were in Cabo, I don't understand why people want a publicly traded company.
Right.
I don't get it. I truly don't. It feels like the most narcissistic, hey, look at me thing on fucking earth. And I say that tongue in cheek. My buddy Alex wants to take his company public. I love the dude. More power to him. I'll probably throw money at his IPO. I'm personally not ever doing that.
Right.
The amount of work that goes into prepping a company to be taken public is absolutely insane, especially if you have like physical product.
Right.
So if you have a warehouse full of shit, there's keychains in there, fabric for making fucking clothes, whatever, you're going to do inventory on your entire warehouse at least 3 times. Because you have to fill out all the forms and there has to be a value associated with all the stuff that you have in stock. Even if it's shit from 10 years ago, they're not going to do anything with. Then, I mean, they're full on audited profit and losses. They're crazy about where money's getting spent. I mean, you've got the government is trying to understand why you're alive and why you exist. Because they have to greenlight all of your books as a starting point for public trading. And it was the craziest shit ever. It was insanely expensive. And then they pumped the stock up to an evaluation that it never should have ever had. I think out into the 60, 70 cent range on like a $6 million company. I have no clue who was in charge of that.
Right.
But they were selling shares to friends and family for like way more than the stock would ever be worth. And they weren't allowed to trade it for 6 months. So like they pumped it, dumped it, bottomed it out. And then all of their friends and family that paid for all this fucking restricted stock was just holding on to shit that wasn't worth a penny.
That's rough, bro.
And then they sell off the shell company because it's aged. And now they're back to operating as a private company again, free and clear.
I can definitely imagine there's a lot of messy business when it comes to that stuff.
I know some of the shit I've seen is it makes me feel sick. I think I made a video, I think on TikTok the other day talking about you don't have to be smart to be successful at business. Because most of the people I've met that are wildly successful in business are fucking retarded. And they're morally bankrupt.
Right. Yes, that's the key phrase right there, dude.
You know what I mean? They figured out a hustle.
Yeah.
And then they ran it all the way to the top. And like, who is the guy that started WeWork? That dude destroyed people's fucking lives and walked away with $1 billion.
Shit's sad, bro. It's just sad. We see it all the fucking time, man.
Yep.
We see it all the fucking time. Well, dude, fuck, man. I appreciate you coming on the channel, dude. This has been a lot of really interesting and exciting information for me. I know it's going to be for a lot of the people that are listening, but anyways, man, you know, if you have, do you have any interest in people reaching out to you, adding you or anything like that?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I even like I say that I have people that I do paid coaching and shit for on the side. I'm just real selective of who I give my time to.
Yeah, of course.
Because it's more of it needs to be a fit for me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that sounds like such an asshole thing to say. But like I want to enjoy it.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. So I'm like, hey, give me something I can have fun with, but also pay me. Like, I know that's
right.
And so, you know, I usually do like an interview and go through that. So, I mean, it isn't something I don't do, but it's not something I do exclusively, if that makes sense.
No, for sure. Well, dude, if in that case, like, what's the best way for anyone to reach out to you, to connect with you and maybe potentially take that conversation to the next level, or just start to follow your platforms to make sure that you are someone that they want to start, you know, getting in that conversation with?
I mean, it's just my first and last name on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. I don't have any, you know, neat abbreviations of any kind or anything like that.
Shots fired. No, for sure. Well, we're gonna put all that information in the caption below. So you know, y'all make sure to connect with him, Jacob Stahler. But without further ado, man, I just wanted to thank you so much for this. And I'm gonna let you get back to it. I know that you got a super busy schedule. But anyways, my name is Zack ROI Williams. This was another episode of Return on Investment MF channel. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. Peace. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video at all or got anything else out of it, please check out these videos over here. They're going to be right in line with what you just saw.